welcome to Thrashcast Episode 3. I'm Ken, and tonight I am your host. But before we begin, let me introduce my partners in crime on our new venture. I want to welcome in Billy and Jim, and how are you both doing tonight, guys?
Awesome.
Very good. Fresh off of a few days in Texas at Hell's Heroes. So got my fill of metal.
Awesome. Yeah, you never get enough metal, dude.
Nope.
Never get enough metal,
No.
for sure. Okay, so before we start, I just wanted to mention where you can find our podcast. We are at horrormetalsounds.com, and we hope everyone goes over to our YouTube channel at Horror Metal Sounds at KenG.2864. We do release this podcast every Friday, so if you do go over to listen to our podcast, please, we ask you all to like and subscribe. We're trying to build our subscribers, and lately our views have been up a lot, so we're very happy to have that happen for us. So we're back tonight to discuss another thrash classic, and it's definitely going to crack your head. See what I did there, guys? Just pardon the pun. But we're going to be discussing Destruction's fourth studio album from 1990, and that will be Cracked Brain. This album, it kind of holds a special place in my heart. But before we dig into that album, let's get our news items and topics out of the way for this week. Jim, do you want to go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been kind of getting into just going through a little bit of thrash and some blackened thrash. I start off with Sadistic Force coming off of their 2023 album Midnight Assassin, which was amazing. They got some new members, and they just released a single in February, Iron Right, so through Goat Throne Records. So I'm hoping maybe an EP coming, maybe a new album. I don't know, but it's a good sign that there's a new single, and I know they're touring right now. So that's cool. And I want to send a congratulations out to Cryptopsy, for winning a Juno in Canada, the Canadian Grammys, for Best Metal album as Gamora Burns. And also I had done an album review on the Metal Pit for that album when it was released back in the fall. So really good. They were up against some great Canadian talent with against Voivod, one of our favorite bands on our podcast here. I know everybody's a big fan, as well as Cataclysm, where we're all big fans. And also Danko Jones. I don't know if we're all big fans. I'm not necessarily, but hey, I'm glad they won. So congratulations to them. Well deserved. And the Junos were taking part in Halifax last weekend. So, there's a little bit of attachment there, although I didn't go. And that's great. It's awesome. So that's the news. But what I'm spinning, I just wanted to mention, I've been going a little bit into some Enforced. So I've been going through, War Remains was one of I think it was my third or fourth for 2023 top albums. But I've been going back to Kill Grid, and I'm thinking about picking up At the Wall. I've been listening to it online. Really, really want to get into it. And, they just had a new single out for their Obituary cover of Deadly Intentions. And I know we're all Obituary fans. So that was a really good cover. And I'm hoping maybe something's coming, maybe an EP of some covers or something that's coming down the line as well, too. So really good stuff. Some great news items there. And everybody should check those out.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Very good. All right. So I'm going to go next. And obviously we discussed Kreator on our first podcast. So this is kind of interesting. Kreator is releasing, and I remember you mentioned this, Jim. You said that was a hard album to find. Enemy of God and Hordes of Chaos are being remastered. Now this is coming out in May, and it's going to include 2 comic books, apparently a demon mask, and it's being released through Nuclear Blast Records. So it looks pretty cool from what I saw. So I think I'm going to get on that little venture when it comes out in May. It looks cool.
Is it a full-on demon mask?
Yeah, it's actually a full-on demon mask from, I think, Coleman Souls. It's sort of, I think it's from Coleman Souls, I believe. I'm not, or it actually, no, sorry, my mistake, guys. It's probably going to look like what was on Hordes of Chaos or Enemy of God, one of those two.
Still cool.
It's supposed to be resembling that.
That'll be a good 150, $200.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Getting a full
guaranteed.
mat.
But dude, it's worth it because both albums are going to be remastered as
Yeah,
well.
I agree. Cool.
So, and they're both great albums. So I think that's going to be fantastic to see
Yeah, and
personally.
hopefully they don't stick remastered in big bold letters like all the
Oh,
remasters on the
yeah,
cover.
I know. That's going to suck if they do though. I hope they don't.
Well,
Wow.
at least we
But we'll
get them
see.
on vinyl, so that's what matters.
I think vinyl and CD they're being released
Okay.
both ways. So
And
you got your choice.
Hordes, you can't get it less than $60 on CD
Yeah,
used, and it's really hard to track down.
yeah, you were saying that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it's hard to find. It's
Yeah,
weird.
vinyl too is a tough one.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow, it's strange. Well, you won't have to wait very long. I think it's May 24th. It's just around the corner, so
Okay, cool.
we'll be able to get that very, very soon. Now, my next news item is going to be for a band that I just recently discovered on Instagram. They are known as Electrocutioner. They're a three-piece from Long Island. Sort of think maybe a little bit of Whiplash because they were a three-piece for quite a long time. They had an album out last year called False Gods in 2023. They just recently released a new single called Heaven's Gates, which I've heard, and it's really, really fantastic. And I'm bringing them up just because I wanted to give them a shout out, first of all, because they're cool guys, and I've been chatting with them off and on through Instagram. But they were at Hell's Heroes last weekend, so they were there hanging out, not playing, of course, but just hanging out and enjoying the show. And of course, Billy was there, and he's our resident kind of metal festival traveler. He's always taking in a festival as much as he can. So I thought, Billy, if you wanted to just give us a few words about the show and what you thought of it, go for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if I ramble on, just stop me.
No worries.
But yeah, for those that might not know, Hell's Heroes. So it takes place. It's the 6th year was this year. It's held in Houston, Texas. 3 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The venue is really cool. They have like a really good indoor like venue, and then you walk out the side door, and then there's like a whole grass area, both real grass, and then there's a big outdoor stage, very much like a European festival would be. And which is cool is at the front of the stage, it's all fake grass. So where the mosh pit is, so they know what they're doing there. It doesn't turn into like a pile of mud. So that's cool. I really struggle to put a number of how many people are there. I think it's pretty well known that this is the biggest sort of U.S. festival right now. Like I'm gonna say it was somewhere between 2K and 3,000 people. But if someone told me it was 4,000, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just hard because people are in the venue, in the indoor venue. They're outside. People, you could leave, and people are going to bars and restaurants. So it's so hard to get a sense. And they do single day tickets and 3-day pass. So like Saturday with Sodom was hands down the busiest day. Thursday in the pouring rain was probably the least busy day. So hard to say, but it really is a good size. People come from all over the U.S. Saw lots of Canadians there. South America for sure represented. I bumped into a lot of new friends from Mexico, so that was cool.
Cool.
And the festival focuses, I'd say, on traditional metal. So you don't get like like even the big European festivals are starting to bring in like Slipknot and Korn to try to bring in the fan base. They've never done that. Like you get like bands that have been around since the 80s. But also a good mix of newer bands as well. So they do mix it up. Like in terms of what worked well, in my opinion, I think I already mentioned it. This is the closest thing we're going to get in Canada or the US to a big European festival. Whether that be Wacken or that be, the ones in France or the UK or whatever, Hellfest in France, which is a really big one now. just like that, you get a diversified fan base, but also fans who love all metal. Right, you never hear someone say, "Oh, that's a hair metal band. That's garbage."
Mhm.
People they're actively listening to everything.
Okay.
Again, exactly like Europe, who can have a really broad-based bill. Yeah, it was the festival, with the exception of something I'll mention, was executed to perfection. Really, like, one band ends, the other band starts. Every band started exactly on time and ended exactly on time, with one
Nice.
Awesome.
exception. Uh, that I'll get to.
Okay.
Amazing metal culture, in between bands, everybody talking to everybody, met all kinds of new people. So that's really cool. Sound quality top notch. I mean, this blew me away, both outdoors and indoors. They've nailed the sound. So incredibly impressive. No band overlaps. So again, really cool.
Okay.
So a band, they alternate outside, inside. I mean, the only negative is, like, a band would end inside at 2:30, and so that means 2:29 it ends. Exactly 2:30 outside, the next band starts. So
Wow.
you got a bit of a. I mean, it's not far distance, but you got a bit of a dash. Uh, so that's a small thing. Logistic wise, it's easier to go to Texas for most of us than it is Europe. Cheaper, endless amount of hotels there, about $100 a night, which is not cheap, but it's also, if you've stayed elsewhere in the U.S., hotels go for $300-400 a night.
Yeah.
So that was really good. Lots of great restaurants in the area. They had, like, about 6 or 7 food trucks. Man, some amazing barbecue. I think I had, like they were smoking the barbecue all night and all morning. It was so good.
Sweet.
They have a history of beautiful weather. Like, every day was, like, probably, 75 to 80 Fahrenheit, 26, 27, if you're from Canada or elsewhere.
Hmm.
One day was rain, so that kind of was a downer. And price, like, it's 220 US dollars. But you're getting 3 days, right? The bands start at between 12 and 1, and they go till, like, I don't know, 10 or 11. And then there's free after parties as well, in all the associated venues. So really the music's going on to midnight. So it's like a no-brainer there. The best bands, again, in the sake of time, I'll mention a couple quick ones. The highlight of the festival, the most crowded show, Sodom. Uh,
Mhm.
Cool.
Basically 90-minute set. They were the headliner that day and ended the
Nice.
entire festival. It was just completely 90 minutes of mayhem. Like, where in Europe you have very controlled mosh pits. Like, it was chaos in the US, right? Like, I was, like, staying away, but it's just nonstop shoes flying in the air, beer cans. And this is amazing, guys. During the Sodom set, they break into Agent Orange. And this
Nice.
guy, I posted a video on my Instagram page. This guy snuck in flares, and during the chorus of Agent Orange, he lights them up, and he's, like, waving these red flares in the middle of the mosh pit.
Okay.
Just such a sight. Two other amazing brutal sets, Autopsy, but Demolition Hammer just destroyed it. Like,
Oh, I like those guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can't
Cool.
believe how good those guys were.
Nice.
Mosh pit, like, it was funny. They made this comment, like, I mean, they swear every second word, so I'm gonna leave that out. But the gist of it is we're so damn old, any one of us could drop of a heart attack on the stage in the next hour. So you
Oh
better give
man.
back to us what we give to you. So, like, the pit goes crazy, but they went and got the garbage cans, and those were flying around the mosh pit. And at one point, they put people in the garbage can and were raising them over the mosh pit, and it was going around in the
Oh my
circle,
God.
like, just like fun, crazy stuff. But the outside venue is cool, right? Because you can stay away from that. Like it's easy for you to step aside. So no big deal there. Queensryche was cool too. Another headliner. They did the entire EP, which was a major highlight for me. I love that. And
Hmm.
Morning album, the best material, I think. But
Hmm.
newer bands were amazing, right? Like Night Demon and Traveler, Traveler from
Cool.
Canada, were fantastic, great shows. I know, Jim, you and I'm not sure, Ken, if you are, but we're big fans of Witch Hazel. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
I
got,
like them.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, cool. So we got to witness their first ever show in the United States. I mean,
Nice.
like
Cool.
everybody in there knew every word, and so that was cool. We also got one of the last Sirith Ungol shows. We
Ah,
know that they've called it retirement after this year. So that
Mm.
was cool. And again, the list goes on and on. So I'm gonna stop there. But just a couple things in fairness for equal criticism. Nothing major, but things that I think the festival can maybe improve on. Thursday, we had these huge thunderstorm warnings. I think they were
Okay.
even calling for hail, everything. Um, so at one point, they just evacuated everybody, right? Because if you were able to fit inside, that was okay. But everybody outside can't fit inside. So then the rest of us kind of got thrown out of the venue. Uh, and
Oh
so not
wow.
not good communication when you can come back. That was just very confusing, right? Like we went for tacos and came back like 45 minutes later, and we didn't know it had already started. So I missed like half of one of the sets I really wanted to see by Autopsy. So that was a bit sort of disappointment. A minor thing, but you're allowed to go in and out of
Okay.
the festival, but after 7 p.m. you're locked in. You leave,
Oh.
you're
yeah.
not getting back in. So I don't know,
Hmm.
that didn't feel totally right. But all the best bands were at night, so you probably didn't want to leave anyways.
True.
Yeah.
Merch lines were brutal. That was the worst thing about the festival. Someone needs to fix that. Like they had like one or two people, everyone's butting in, it's chaos. The whole area around the merch stand, I was having like, what do they call that? Post-traumatic stress disorder. My last whacking trip. The whole thing's
Oh
covered in
no.
mud. Like my buddy went, like, and I were like struggling to stand up. I almost went down twice. So they could have done with that. The next day they had cardboard boxes that they opened and put on the mud. But it was
Oh
mainly
my
sort of
God.
around that muddy merch area. But then it was
Hmm.
beautiful weather the next 2 days, so that was good. The
Okay.
mud dried up. And then kind of lastly, the one thing that kind of irked me, because you get there at noon, you're there till like 11 or midnight at night. So literally your ticket says no seating. So
Okay.
what that means is you literally can't sit down the whole festival. There are no seats, no chairs anywhere. But
Oh,
you see
wow.
the seats and chairs, but like they're in VIP section. So you got to pay twice the price to get a VIP ticket.
Of
Uh,
course.
if you want to sit down and eat your meal or have a beer. So that kind of sucked. You don't usually
Hmm.
see a European festival have like that type of class system based on how much you pay. But all in all, just fantastic festival. Highly recommended to anyone. Like it's now it's going to be a staple on my annual festival
Cool.
tours, no doubt. And the band said it well. They all seem to love playing there, and I think they're treated well. And they're like, this is the closest thing. They agree with what I was saying. The closest thing you get to a European festival here. So, if we appreciate that and want to see that, we got to support this festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommended. Yeah, so that's sort of either a quick or a long summary.
No, that's cool. No, that's
Of the
cool. I,
Wicked.
I I I love the name of the festival, Hell's Heroes. It just
Yeah.
rolls off the tongue. It sounds like a really good time. And I like the fact that there's a lot of different bands on the bill, and you get
Yeah,
Yeah.
thrash, you get, like just typical metal, you get death
yeah,
metal. That's so great. I love shows like that where you can pick or choose what band you want to see. But it sounds like you had a good time,
Yeah.
Billy.
yeah. No, it was good. It was good. The Yeah, as I said, just the whole experience. Like I have a good friend in Texas, so I met up with him the day before. We
Cool.
spent a whole day record shopping. I
Nice.
think I came home with about 10 or 12 vinyl records.
Oh, sweet.
So that was cool. But yeah, just an awesome experience. So now back to normal.
Okay.
There
Oh,
you go.
one question. Did you get anything for merch? Were you able to get like a shirt or anything or?
Yeah, no, so what did I get from merch? So I got sort of the festival shirt, which I
Oh,
don't know.
cool.
Did you
Yeah.
guys see that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
awesome.
Hell's
Cool.
Hero. That's the Hell's Hero. Then on the
Okay,
back,
cool.
trying to get the bands.
Oh, the bands. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
that was cool. I kind of bought that. Uh,
Okay.
I bought like one or two sort of albums from the bands that were playing. So that was kind of about it, I guess. I did
Okay.
enough damage the day before hitting all the local record shops.
I bet you did. All right, cool. Cool. Well, okay, great. Well, thanks for that little bit of coverage because it's great because I wasn't there, so it's nice to hear what a friend or someone I know. I did have a bunch of friends who went, so they all
Yeah,
had a good time from what I've heard.
cool.
So it sounds like a very successful festival, and I bet you'll be there next year.
Indeed.
Cool, cool.
Awesome.
All right, now we're going to get on to our main topic of the evening, and that's destruction. That's why we're all here tonight. I'll give just a brief band bio before we start. So Destruction formed in 1983 under the name of Night of Demon, and back then they sounded sort of like a mix between Iron Maiden and or at least I read a bit of Venom, which is a strange combination. But of course, after a few weeks, they kind of chucked all that out, and then they came up with the name Destruction, which to me says it all for this band. At that time, the band consisted of, they were part of the Teutonic Big Three. So you had Kreator, Sodom, and if you want to include Tankard as the fourth, you could do that. The Big Four of German thrash. At this time, the band consisted of Mike Siffringer, Marcel Schmier, if I'm pronouncing that right, on bass and vocals, and Tommy Sandman on the drums. So I have to say these three guys carved up one hell of a resume over the years with their discography. So it's pretty insane. They have 17 studio albums out at this time, and it doesn't look like they're going to be stopping at any time soon. So, if you're a Destruction fan, it's good to listen to some good thrash from these dudes. So, of course, tonight we're going to be discussing Cracked Brain, which came out in 1990. It is their fourth studio album. And as I mentioned earlier, before we get into the heart of the meat of the album itself, I thought I wanted to ask a couple questions to you guys both. First question I wanted to ask was just give me your initial thoughts about Destruction. It could be anything you want to say about the band, when you first heard about them, what you like about them. Do you think they're better than Kreator or Sodom? Whatever you feel like. So we'll do that first. And Jim, why don't you start us off tonight?
Yeah, I think the first album I listened to would have been probably Release from Agony. Right around that time, 87, 88, all around there, I was getting into a lot of thrash metal. So, and this album, Cracked Brain, I mean, came in probably one of the highest years of heavy thrash metal heading into the 1990s. So, I think they are awesome. I would pick them. I think during the Kreator podcast, I picked them third out of the fourth, but only, again, it's a different day today. I think I picked obviously Kreator, then I went with Sodom, and then I went with Destruction, and then I went with Tankard. But I mean, it's phenomenal. And the latest album, Diabolical, was an amazing album in 2022. So they're not losing it at all. They're just as brutal as they were back then, I think. And no, I absolutely love them. One of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a good album. I like Diabolical too. That was a really strong outing for the band. So
and the cover on it, the cover of City Baby Attacked by Rats, the GBH cover. I mean, you talk about punk crossover with a lot of thrash metal. And I mean, this is a thrash band that did a hell of a good cover of that. I think it's, as one would say, it's different than the original and awesome. So I absolutely love it.
Cool. And Billy, let's hear your thoughts about this band.
Yeah, I guess not surprisingly, we have some overlap here again. Um, so yeah, I discovered, I guess, Destruction with Release from Agony as well. Probably not the year it came out, like maybe, the year after, I would guess.
Okay.
It was my first Destruction album. Then I went backwards and got the old stuff. And then I got on the release schedule from Crack Brain onward. I always liked the band from day one. As Jim said, we did sort of do the ranking last time. And to be honest, mine hasn't changed. So for me, I was Sodom, Kreator, Destruction, Tankard. And so I gave some thought to this when we were, given we were going to be talking about this. And I think what does it for me that puts Destruction third is smearing his vocals.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind his vocals. I've grown to like them, but I never loved them.
Okay.
I think musically they could stand with the big four of Germany or the big four of the US, right? Like the riffs are just insane in this band. So it's just the vocals that sort of push it back. So I'm a big fan, and I only got to see them unfortunately once
Oh, really?
live. And it was in Germany. I'm gonna guess maybe like 2015 or 16 or something like that.
Okay.
And it was an awesome show. Like they were fantastic, better than I expected them to be. And it was kind of a cool story too. Like we were waiting for. I was by myself at that show, waiting for Destruction to start, and there was this family, like a mother, father, and two sons. And we started talking, and they were like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Canada." And they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." They were local German people. And, once they started, they sort of took me into the family, and we're all headbanging together, and we're high fiving, like when Curse the Gods come on, and Eternal Death, Bestial Invasion, and all these classic songs, and we're high five. So it's just such a cool experience. Nothing like that ever happened again at the festival. But I do every year. I go back to Wacken. I meet up with that father, and we have a beer there.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Cool story. I thought I'd share.
Very, very cool. All right, cool. Well, for me, Destruction, I'm going back to 86, and I was grade 10, so I'm going to date myself a little bit here. Science class, I had two buddies of mine, this guy Scott and this guy Adam. They were big metalheads. So when they found out that I liked metal, it was kind of like, oh, we all became good buds. So one day they always sat in the back of the room. One day Scott brought in the vinyl record to Eternal Devastation. And he's like, look at this. I'm like, oh, what's this? I had not heard of Destruction at that time. So it was like, oh, okay. He's like, you got to hear this. You got to hear this. All right, cool. So I did. And I was hooked ever since. So I've been a big fan from, I think, basically Eternal Devastation onwards. Now, mind you, I did go back and hear the first album, the beginning of the band's history with the EP, Sentence of Death, and then the first album, Infernal Overkill. So, I mean, I've heard all those albums. But, yeah, that was like my first very introduction to the band, and these guys were funny dudes at the time. So that's like where my recollection of how I got into Destruction was from. Now I know, like, we're talking about Crack Brain, so we're kind of going up sort of almost, like quite a few years into the band's discovery at this point in time, 4 studio albums in. But when it comes to the reason why I'm really into this band, it's because in grade 10, I'm hearing this for the first time, and it blew me away. But when I got to Crack Brain, the artwork it tore my head off. It was like, I was in art school at the time. So for me, it was like, wow, this is incredible. And the artist is Andreas Marshall. So Billy, I'll just take a second here just to give you guys a little bit of history on Andreas Marshall. Andreas is like the king of record album covers. This guy's did over 103 album covers and single covers. So this dude did a lot, and he's worked with practically every band. He's worked with Kreator, he's worked with Sodom, he's worked with Rage, he's worked with In Flames. The list goes like on and on and on, and he's a fantastic artist. And you might know some of his covers, Billy, from like Agent Orange, he did for Sodom.
Yeah.
He did that cover, which is so great.
Cool.
He did a bunch of Kreator covers. Oh, and I forget too. Blind Guardian is another band that he actually worked with as well.
Nice.
So like, and Obituary, of course. Like this guy's, he still does album covers to this day, and I think he's like the king of album covers, just based on the fact that he's in Germany and he's worked with all the German bands. So that's kind of a cool little tidbit with him. Now, like before we start, like getting into the second question, because the second question I wanted to get your thoughts on the evolution of Destruction through their progressive period from my mind 1987 to 1998, because that's a big chunk of time where a lot of things happened in the band's history. But just before we get to that, I just wanted to bring up another little small point. So I was in art school at the time. I saw this album cover when I was going to school. So we had the Record Peddler here in Toronto. That's where I actually saw the album cover. Blew me away. And I just love it. I love the colors. And one of the reasons why Billy, I remember you said you weren't too particularly fond over this cover. But I like it. And I like it because, first of all, I like the color green. So green is like one of my favorite colors. And the fact that, you got two colors. You got the greens, the warm, which is a warm color, and that kind of recedes or forward, and then you got the red, which is a cool color. So I love the concept of the two colors in the piece. I like the fact that the cover itself is very much kind of like shot through kind of a lens, so you get this kind of all enveloping view of this dude sitting there looking like rather perturbed. And I think it looks like it's a genie's bottle that he's opened up, or something that he's doing in the creatures or whatever they are. The genie or the satanic evil is like flowing out. So for me, that blew me away. I totally love the cover for that reason. And I'd already liked the band, but that cover, I've to me, it's one of my favorite Destruction covers, pretty much of all time in my mind. But that's cool. my little contribution to why I like Destruction so much. So,
and I think, Ken, you mentioned, like I was saying to you, I wasn't the biggest fan of the cover, and I did kind of blow it up on the computer. I think part of the issue is I bought that on cassette, like back in the day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And even now I own it on CD. I did yesterday order the vinyl, so I'll have it. But like, I think it's hard to appreciate artwork on a cassette, or even a CD. Like I'm used to vinyl and having the big blow up thing, and
yeah,
it was kind of cool. I blew it up on the computer, so like it was better than I remember than I was thinking. But
I love the cover,
my favorite, but it was cool.
Yeah, see, so like I absolutely love this cover. This cover it's hard to see, but I just think it's a fantastic cover. It's just for me, anyways. All right, so the meat of what I want, this other question I wanted to throw out to you guys is, and I know Billy, you're a huge technical thrash fan, so this is probably maybe up your aisle a lot. But what I wanted to know was just give me your thoughts about Destruction in this period of time from 87 to 98. Now, we all know that a lot has happened in that time. Schmier left the band. He wasn't happy with Mike's direction in terms for the progressive direction with the guitars. And I know they put a lot of money into Cracked Brain when they were recording initially. And then, so Schmier leaves the band, and they were kind of up shit's creek for a little bit. And that's how they were able to bring in Andre Greeter into the band to help them out on the singing portion of it. And by that time, they added Harry Wilkins, they added Oliver Kazar on drums. So the band pretty much changed their sound. But of course, I'm getting ahead of myself because we all know that they started this back in 87 when they did Release from Agony. So you could see the progression there. So I just wanted to get your initial thoughts, what you guys think of that period of time. Of course, we all know it led into the Cannonball album, which is probably the worst Destruction album ever. And we all know that they don't consider this a Destruction album. It's very much how Celtic Frost doesn't consider Cold Lake an album that they would want to talk about either. But so let's talk about this. Billy, let's get your thoughts first. What do you think about all this time period?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, right? Like I almost look at it as two, right?
Okay.
So and the 90s were also, we discussed this like with Kreator, right? Like
Mhm.
it was a very wild time for Kreator as well, experimenting, and I know some of us like that period more than others. So there's some of that happening here, but yeah, you're right. Like definitely, probably one of my favorite sides of thrash is the technical side. Um, so it's an interesting period for the band. Like I almost separate Release from Agony
Okay.
from the other two albums in the
Okay.
period, because I think, like I guess the way I view it is Release from Agony is like a perfect natural progression,
Mm.
from the previous sort of two all, balls to the wall thrash albums, right? It's more
Mhm.
technical, and I don't want to give away my ranking here, but let's just say this is going to be incredibly high.
Okay.
But the directional change made perfect sense to me. And they weren't the only German band doing it, right? I mean, Kreator
Right.
Sodom weren't doing it, but Death Row. I mean,
Oh
they,
yeah,
they,
yeah,
they
yeah.
sort of went in this direction, but on steroids.
Right.
Yeah.
Exception ignored, right? Which is one of my all-time favorite albums. But they weren't alone going. But to me, it was all natural and made perfect sense to do Release of Agony, right? It was great,
Mhm.
love it. But then for me, the period sort of moves off to just a period of like inner turmoil in the band, right?
Mhm.
Like things were broken, right? So you already said it, Ken. Schmier left. So again, not going into the rankings now, but I love Crack Brain. I think really good
Mhm.
album. And yes, it is more technical for sure, but I do think it's not going to be remembered for that, like in the way
Mhm.
that Release from Agony is. And it wasn't nearly as successful. Like I think it'll be remembered as the album where Schmier left. And I always liked the band Poltergeist. So,
Mhm.
when Andre kind of came in from Poltergeist, I was okay with that. And I already said I'm not the biggest Schmier fan to start with. So that
Okay.
worked for me. But, I think at the end of the day, Destruction were in trouble. It could have been any album. And the fan
Mhm.
base was going to somewhat revolt because Schmier's not there. So that's a given. It's a headwind the band had to face. Like I do wonder what would have happened if Smear stayed and sang on that album. Would it have
Mm.
been a much bigger commercial success? But we'll never know. Uh,
True.
Yeah.
and then, like, yeah, again, Ken, you already hit on it, but that mess of Cannonball, the band's just completely lost, right? We got another singer, Thomas, somebody I forget his last name, um, is sort of there as well. Andre's no longer there, and like the band's lost. So what are they doing? They're just looking for what's successful in the '90s, right? Pantera. I mean, this thing
Yeah.
sounds like Pantera. I hate the vocals. Like it doesn't even
Yeah.
sound like Destruction. Uh,
No.
No. No.
yeah, it's just such a disappointment. But like luckily, the band totally turned it around in 2000. Schmier returns, All Hell Breaks Loose comes out, and they're
Yep.
completely back on track again. And the band's been a few little peaks and valleys, but largely stabilized to this day. So yeah, I just
Mhm.
think it's a natural progression to the technical side, and then just inner turmoil in the band, sort of causing it to go in different directions.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning Cannonball. So the band that they relied upon was Ephemera, which were kind of more like a heavy metal band. They weren't really thrash.
Hmm.
And Thomas Rosenmerkel was the
That's the one.
vocalist,
Yeah, yeah.
and Christian Engler was on bass. So
Okay.
technically, they replaced Schmier with those two guys. And
Yeah.
obviously, you're right. The Pantera, it's god awful. I could only stomach a song or two, and then like I gotta turn it off. It's worse than Saint Anger, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd rather listen
You
to
Mm.
Saint
you
Anger.
agree, Ken, though, right? Or Jim,
Yeah.
like this thing sounded like a Pantera,
Ah.
a
Oh
weak
yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Pantera
yeah,
clone, right? Yeah.
yeah.
I think a lot of the bands of the time, you think Sacred Reich had Heel,
Yeah.
which, and then you
Mhm.
had Kreator had theirs, and I think this was theirs. And I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. Release from Agony is a great album, and I think if Schmier was on it, it probably would have been a much bigger release. Although I do like Andreas, I like his voice. I mean, I like both of their voice, but Cannonball was dreadful, and it's just I mean, right from the artwork to the actual music is just, it's a skippable album in there, and they don't even consider it part of their catalog, and I don't
No.
blame them. It was Halloween could have one with maybe even Chameleon if you're if depending on what you're talking about. All through this time period, these bands seem to be trying to jump on a different. They were trying to maybe experiment a little too much. I think they're fairly consistent, but yeah, there's definitely a dud there. I mean, Crack Brains is one of the top albums. I don't want to give away my ratings, but I really like it. But yeah, Cannonball, just terrible. And I mean, and then after that, with All Hell's Breaking Loose, it got very much more consistent right up until 2022. And I mean, their stuff is really, really consistent after that. And, I think that it was such a stretch with the band members they got. It wasn't Destruction. That's all there is to it. I mean, again, I find the bands of the time were doing that, and they were trying to put out stuff that weren't true to form.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it. I think it's just so it's almost silly in a way.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the cover though. Like, I'm raving about Crack Brain, and then you get this Cannonball where it's like, I don't know what the hell was an art piece or like some kind. I don't know what in the world it was, but it's god awful. It was just
oh yeah,
terrible stuff. So, Jamie, any other thoughts about the progressive period? Is it something that you preferred over the first few where you get the kind of raw energy, chug all the way?
I like the first. Like I am same as Billy. Release from Agony for me is considered in the 3, and that's probably because Schmier was there, and there was a lot of familiarity. But although that album was a little bit better than the other, you could see the progression of how it went. I mean, and Crack Brain was awesome. I love it. I mean, I love the vocals on it. I mean, other than maybe one song, I like the whole album, and it's a great release. And I like to see not necessarily a Crack Brain 2, but they should have kept that vocalist for at least that other album. I mean,
he went back to Poltergeist, so
it was more like almost kind of like a rental kind of. We're putting out an album. I don't know, maybe they were getting pressure from their label. We got to put one out by this time, and who's available. And then it was just kind of, which direction do we want to go in? And but I agree. And then back to 2000, things got back online, and they almost recalibrated in my mind. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I did read that they were friends with Andre, so they knew of him. It wasn't like they just fell upon the guy by accident. So they. And from what I read, it sounds like he was only really going to be there for the one album, just to sort of help them out. Which both you guys are right. It's too bad because he is a really good vocalist. But of course, if you like Poltergeist, they have at least 2 or 3 albums out. I think last 4, 6, 7 years now. I think, Billy.
Yeah. Although, no. I guess the last one was.
Think so?
Yeah. I can't remember the year. It's not that old, but.
Yeah, a few years back, wasn't it? At least
a few years, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a very strong album.
Yeah, they've had a couple. I think they put out a couple albums, and I like both of them personally. I think they're great. They're awesome. What a great band.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into our main topic of our podcast tonight. So we are talking, as we mentioned, Crack Brain. So at this time, Schmier and of course, Sifringer brought in 2 new members. So they brought in Oliver Kaiser on drums, and then they brought in Harry Wilkins on guitar. So they kind of went from a threesome to sort of a foursome, and then basically worked from there. So let's start with the first song tonight, and that is the title track, Crack Brain. And Jim, why don't you start off with your thoughts on this song?
There's I remember the first time I heard it, I thought it had a massive Testament feel to it. If I was going to compare it to more of an American maybe more so from kind of the second wave thrash, you know, because it was kind of a second wave thrash album because, you know, Schmier wasn't there. So I kind of think of it that way. But the heavy guitar intro is awesome. I mean, the chorus, Crack Brain, it just, oh, I mean, I would love to see this live. I wonder, I don't know, do they still play it live? I mean, it's a wicked, wicked song. And I love the distorted, I don't know if it's guitar slides or what, but the guitar distortion has a really cool, funky sound to it, like to the back end of the song. And I absolutely love it. It's a great track. What a great track to start off with. Very easy and just plows right through.
Yeah. What do you think, Billy? Like the song?
Yeah, no, I like it. Just another sort of, a strong quality thrash track. Like, some people complain, like no smear, no destruction, but the signature riffing and sort of song structures are still here. That's evident, right off the bat with this Crack Brain track. Like, and so Andre, I do feel he's trying to, I mean, he's his own singer, right? For sure. And he has a more often used lower range. But I do find at times that this album, he does try to sing, is somewhat in the style of Smear, sort of in sometimes more in the manic sort of approach that Smear had, right? So, I mean, it goes with the music. So I guess that makes sense. Like, I think that thrash sound, that technical thrash continues to progress from from the previous album released from Agony. So I think that's cool. Jim, I think you hit on it, but this song has some really, cool but odd guitar leads, right? Mike's always like doing these quirky leads, but I love them, right? Like not following traditional thrash norms at all.
Yeah.
And I even hear, and not in all the songs, but in some of the songs where they expand musically, like I get some like Mekong Delta feelings, which is a German technical thrash band, super technical band. So that comes out a little bit. And Jim, you hit on it. Really cool chorus, but almost every one of these songs have these really catchy choruses, and particularly the bottom half have some of the best choruses. And they really make a good use of the gang backing vocals, right? It's in this song, but it even comes out before, right? The singer shouts, and the whole band, does the gang sort of shout back type thing. So it works really well. Was a part of the old thrash sound. So yeah, I think it's a great track.
Yeah, I agree. I like this song too. I find that Andre's vocals are a little strained at times. Like it's almost like he's trying to take a crap while singing. I don't know. It's something I kind of noticed about it. I mean, not that it's a bad thing. It's just
one way to put it.
I don't mean it. I don't mean any disrespect to the vocalist. I think he
did in song 5.
Maybe there's a good chance he did. But yeah, I like the vocals a lot. That's the one thing I thought. Well, it's similar to Schmier, and he's got, like you say, he's got his own way of going about singing the songs. I like the song. It's very up tempo, which is what I liked about it. I also like the fact that it's about like their struggles of the human mind, or the lyrics are touching upon the ideas of anxiety, mental deterioration, and substance abuse. So for me, I like all that in this song. And I think when you look at the cover, Crack Brain, and you hear the first song, it's like, yeah, this kind of correlates. This really, really correlates. But I think it is a good start to a pretty good album right off the bat with that song. So, okay, so we'll go into our next song, which is Frustrated. And Billy, why don't you start us off on this?
Yeah, no, another an aggressive thrash song, I think. The song structure is probably a bit more traditional relative to the track we just talked about, Crack Brain. Not quite as quirky in the leads, but just there's also some really cool, like, crunching riffs in here. But I think the real strength of this one is just the galloping, sort of thrashy pre-chorus and chorus sections, right? That works really well. So yeah, no, I like it a little bit more straightforward of a track, but has all the good destruction pieces. Like, and I don't know if you guys find this, or maybe it's my CD pressing that I still listen to, but I've
Mhm.
always find this, like, to me, this song starts and it almost feels like it's missing like an intro or something. Like it
Mhm.
just starts at like full pace and the
Yep.
vocal is already progressing, right? Like it feels like there's a couple seconds missing, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
you're right. Yeah, you're right about that. I had, yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah, it's
I have to
odd.
go back and hear that again. I have an original pressing of it as well on
Okay, I
CD,
got
but
it. Could be a mistake because they were rushing at the end after all the delays, but I
no,
don't know.
I think you're right. I think it does. It's kind of weird how it does start off, but it's a good song. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's
no, I agree.
catchy. It's catchy as hell, first
Yeah,
of all, and it's like, to me, I like the fact that it's got some great riffs in it, and I just love the fact that we're going to throw in a song that's about the current state of the world, about environmental issues, which we all know at this time so many thrash bands love to write about that. So it's good. It is a good song. And Jim, so what are your thoughts about this song? Do you like it as well?
I wrote it's got a weird intro where it starts right up. It's like it starts in mid vocal. Like I know
but
the
I
vocals
said, yeah.
start, but for me, I need a couple of seconds to adjust. And it's like walking into a store, and you need to take that first 6 feet to look around to say, okay, what do I do? So that's what I need. I need to be led a little bit more. So this just kind of smacks you right in. I mean, it's a great song. I like the
Mhm.
drums and the bass in it. I like a really heavy drum beat, and this has it. Great guitars. I find it's got musically kind of an overkill vibe, like a bit
Okay.
of more of a kind of a mid 2000s overkill vibe. Not vocally, but just the music. And I mean, it's got a really great guitar solo in it. It's a good song. I think the back end of that. I'm not going to give anything away, but I think the back end of the album is much more stronger than the first part of the
I
album.
agree.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very, very good
yeah,
point about that. Okay, cool. So I got you, Billy, right? You mentioned, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
did I
yeah.
get you? Yeah, okay, we got everybody. I'm just making sure everyone's covered here. Um, yeah, so the next track number 3 is SED, the acronym for Socialists Eternal Death, which is, I guess it's a political song based on what I was reading about it. And they basically were making comment on the Eastern German Communist Party, which is kind of interesting. Um, so they got political on the song. And so, Jim, what do you think about this?
It's okay. It's not one of my favorite songs on the album, but it's got a kind
Mhm.
of a groovy sound to it, and it's fairly heavy, and I like it. It's got a you're coming out of Crack Brain, which was a kind of a bit of more of an anthemic song off this album. I find it's like, I
Mhm.
can picture you with your fist in the air yelling the chorus, and then Frustrated, a really strong song, and then I find it's winding down a little bit. Still a good song, not my favorite song on the album. Like I say, it's got a really good groove to it, but that's really all I got to say about it. It's not one of my favorites.
Fair enough. How about you, Billy?
Yeah, so I think it's a good song. Like I would probably
Okay.
agree. Not one of my favorites.
Okay.
I kind of like the pacing here. They mix it up a little bit. Like, it kind of opens with this like ominous melodic guitar, but then we get in, it kicks into like full thrash mode. So that's kind of cool. I do
Mhm.
feel Andre singing's more diverse on this.
Okay.
He's singing a bit cleaner at times, and he also has like this sort of deep snarl voice at times as well, particularly in the chorus, which I actually like that style.
Mhm.
Like I find it has that galloping thrash pace again, similar to Frustrated. Another good hook-filled chorus, which is consistent across the album. I
Yeah.
do find and again, I don't know if you guys, maybe I'm just being picky here, but like again, the melodic dueling guitar leads are really cool.
Yeah,
At the end, towards the end, are very good. But I find it interesting. Again, this probably a mix issue. Like, I don't know if they were recorded separately, but like I find the one guitar louder than the other. And I feel that usually when you have like the dueling leads, they feed off of each other, and here
Right.
they don't find feed off each other. They're kind of awkward with the way they come together. So between the two guitarists is awkward, and I think it's a bit awkward with how it sits in the song as well. So I don't know, a little nitpick there on that one, but a solid song. But I agree with Jim. Probably one of the weaker ones, but not as weak as one that's coming up.
Oh, really? Oh, okay,
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
All right, so Time Must End. This is a song I like this song quite a bit. And I'm gonna say this, so maybe you guys agree or you don't agree, but there is a slight Metallica Ride the Lightning vibe to this song. I can
Totally.
hear it. You get that chug at the start of the song. And also the lyrics are about themes of like isolation, hopelessness, and the desire to escape, which to me, Metallica were really into that kind of stuff way back when they started out. So that was my first thought. Is like, oh, this sounds a little like Ride the Lightning. Do you guys agree with that, or how about you, Billy? What do you think?
About the song?
Like, yeah, about the song, and what did you think that you hear a bit of a
Yeah,
vibe
I didn't
to
catch that.
lightning in it?
Yeah,
Oh, you did?
I know you and Jim always seem to catch these
Yeah.
things, like the songs that sound like Anthrax, and I don't know, like I didn't catch that. Like
Okay,
I'm
all right,
probably not good at compare. I just kind of listen to it in isolation, but
okay,
I didn't pick it up. But if I
okay,
go to a Metallica album in the last 10 years, it's only Masters or Justice. So, I probably haven't heard that in like a decade. So maybe that's why. But
okay.
uh,
No
but in
worries.
terms of the track overall, I think Jim nailed it that the second half is the
Yeah.
strongest. I say the second half on this track.
Yeah.
Okay,
For me, right?
okay.
I love this track. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's one of the more technical and progressive songs. And because, the first three songs we talked about are like they had a rule that it had to be 3.5 minutes because they were all 3.5 minutes,
Yeah.
plus or minus a second. And so this is 6 minutes. So finally the band could let loose and musically sort of, get some cool solos and stuff like that. So, that's one of the reasons I love it. I think this is one of the best drumming tracks on the album.
Yeah.
Oliver he's got some of these cool odd timing beats and fills that work out well. The bass is prominent in the mix. That's where that's why I get this progressive feel. I think the songwriting's good. The rhythms and the riffs again don't go where you expect them to, and so that's really cool. And on this one, I think Andre kind of reveals his inner Schmear on this one because he's singing high at times, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and just the guitar leads are fantastic here, right? Again, the extra sort of 2.5 minutes just allows the band to soar
To
music.
breathe.
Yeah,
Yeah, to breathe.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Jim, it's funny it's funny you picked up on the exact same thing I picked up. So what do you think about the song?
Well, I wrote, it sounds like it could have came off of a Metallica album when they were good.
Really?
So yeah,
Yeah, you
and I
guys are
wrote
always on
the
the same
same thing.
wave.
Oh yeah, like what I do is when I'm listening to an album, regardless of who it is, I try to think of similarities of what I've heard of, and they're not similar in the sense that he doesn't sound like Hetfield.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
No,
find
no,
some of
no.
the guitar leads sound like Hammett, excuse
Mm,
me, and some of the like the drumming in that, and just the mix together has that sort of fresh Metallica sound back then. And,
yeah.
and I think maybe too, where it's 6 minutes long, like you said, Billy, they had time to wander around a little bit more.
Yeah.
And rather than the three, I mean, this is only a 39-minute, 1 second album. And, and this is like 6 minutes of it. So, you're looking at 20% of the album is in this one shot. So
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
break it down, they have time to wander around and
Yeah.
really kind of experiment a bit. And I mean, a wicked drum intro, and this is my favorite drum track for
Okay,
sure.
cool.
I mean, he just goes in all different directions on this. And from this song, I'm going to give this away. 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all top songs for me. I'm sorry,
All
they're
right.
all top songs. The
That's
back end of
cool.
this album is phenomenal after
Okay.
the disappointment coming up next.
So I agree with
Yeah.
you totally, Jim. But did you skip 8?
No. 6, 7, 8, 9. All
Yeah, okay,
I've
I
got them
agree.
all down
Okay,
listed as ones.
yeah, we're on the same. So yeah, we're on the
No,
exact
no,
same page.
we're all on the same page because
Yeah.
I agree with both you guys that the second half of the album is a lot stronger than the first half. So I would agree there. And of course, now we have to
It's a
get to
great
the
track.
yep.
And I love the fact, like I say, there's another 5-minute on here. I like it when they take a little bit more time
Yeah.
and they kind of, it's great to go balls out and try to thrash it up really fast. I love that too, but I like it when they can wander around a bit. Definitely.
Yeah, oh, I would agree with that. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. So let's address the elephant in the room, guys. Number 5, My Sharona. Billy, what's your thoughts? I bet you don't like it on the album.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
I figured.
I just don't get it, right? I mean, this is not the only band doing these weird, like
Oh,
thrash
I know.
doing these weird covers, right? Like,
Yep.
we've talked about them before. Like as far as I'm concerned, pick a classic heavy metal track like a Black Sabbath or something, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
thrashy, right? So Sacred Reich did that. Obviously, it was a huge success for them. Like if I look, the vocals are just dreadful. I can't stand the vocals. I mean, I guess musically it's a little bit better. The vocals, like I do like that thick up front, like bass forward in the song. that's that's a bit cool, but I'm grasping at straws here. So yeah, not a big fan. It's 3 minutes, just cut the damn thing.
I take it, Jim, you have the same opinion?
Well, like I don't understand, like when Children of Bodom did their list of covers, and then they
Yeah.
do "Oops, I Did It Again." Like I don't know if that was a joke. I took it as a joke because I love Children of Bodom. Why the hell would I want to listen to that? And I bought the album because I bought it, and they had some good covers on there. Like I think they had "Knocking on Your Back." They had
Yeah.
Creedence Clearwater Revival one on there, and a
Yeah.
bunch of
Yeah.
other
I
ones.
remember that.
But like off their latest album, I know a different lead singer, Schmier, doing Diabolical, does a GBH cover. And I mean, you either do something like Billy said, where you do a classic metal song by a classic metal band, something that you want to really pay homage to, or you do something a little bit more off the wall that would be, but off the wall in a good sense. Like GBH, a great punk band. And they did a really good job of it. And I know GBH was super impressed with it. That makes me happy. This is a garbage, and I got to be honest with you. With an album that's 39 minutes, you lose 10% of it almost in one song that's just a cover. It's just a filler, and they didn't need to do that. They could have put on easily
No.
another ripping song. I mean, they're heading into the best part of the album. The next song is a killer, and then it just goes on from there. They could have started that with track 4. Time must end, and then have another song in there. And I think it would have been, like, come on, this is just, in my mind, it's just record company laziness.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fair, dude. That's fair. I think Metallica was probably one of the better bands who understood cover songs
Yes,
because of what they picked, like Diamond Head and stuff like that,
good point.
and Budgie, bands that they could like take the song, expand on it a little bit, but still maintain the integrity of the song where it originated from, originally.
Yep.
Like I Am Evil. I love that song. I love their version of that song. I even like the Diamond Head song, but I love the way they covered that song. They just were able to add to the whole hysterics of the idea of burning witches.
And you make a great point. Like Judas Priest with Green Manalishi.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody. I always thought that was a Judas Priest song.
Yeah,
and the same thing as Diamonds and Rust. So and Am I Evil? When I was a kid, the first Bonsai records I had the original track listing, and then when you bought the Elektra Records version a few years later, it had Am I Evil? And the other 2 tracks on it. So I always thought it was a Metallica song before I knew who Diamond Head was even a band. So and that says something. You're picking something and you're bringing it to the forefront. It's the same thing as them picking Misfit songs like Last Caress and that. I mean, that's what you want. Bread Fan. They even did a Queen, but they didn't do a popular Queen song. I love that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So I guess it was popular. Stone Cold Crazy is pretty popular.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. All right. So let's go on to track number 6. And this is a song I dig a lot, Ripping You Off
No,
Blind. Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, like I'm the same way. It's we've already sort of said we're gonna end this thing with a bang
Yeah.
with the last 4 songs. So yeah, I think it's very strong. Again, over 5 minutes. So I think Jim, you mentioned it, but we're getting more musically more interesting stuff.
yeah,
Like it's just such a memorable chorus too. So just the next couple songs. I was sort of re-listening to it yesterday. I'm like, this is the best chorus, ripping you out blind. Then I'm
Yeah.
like, a day before. Now I'm like, no, that's the best chorus, right? Like, and no need to justify. So I mean, all these are great choruses. This one I do like Andre's vocals here.
Mhm.
He spends more time in the lower range, and I tend to like him there more than trying to do the higher smear style. Some of the great guitar leads all over this track, and kind of like that stop and go riffing. That's just real thrashy and moshy, and so
yeah.
that's really cool. So yeah, I did just a great track.
There's a little bit of groove into it, I
Yeah,
find. There's like a
Oh
slight
yeah,
they do a little bit of groove, which kind of works. Like it's not,
yeah,
it doesn't dominate the song, but it's there. And I kind of like how they mixed it. So you still get that like a lot of melodic leads. You get a good vibe, and yeah, the chorus is fantastic. So Jim, what do you think?
oh, this is an amazing. So you leave my Sharona, and I'm calming down after my
Yeah.
rant. Sorry, and you're just this is all the next 4 songs are all number ones in my mind. I mean,
Okay.
it's got kind of a dark groove to it, and that's what I like. It's could even be maybe on this album maybe the closest thing to a doom song, a doom thrash song. And I mean, I love it. The song just takes off. The vocals they're awesome. The drums sound another great drum track. I said, I know I love the best drum track on song 4, but this is
Mhm.
another great one. And I get excited. I love the name of the song and I just love the chorus. This is a ripper for sure. And I mean, it just keeps getting better and better and better as the album goes on. It's exciting.
Yeah, and I would think like lyrically they were somebody pissed them off big time because they were ripped off or someone ripped them off. I was trying to figure it out. I was like, well, what are they referring to? Was it some kind of because they mentioned the states? So was it something? Did they get did like a man did like a tour show like they get ripped off or something? But I'm not quite sure. But they're obviously they were pissed when they wrote this song. But it shows really in the chorus, the riffs, the vibe. It's great. It's a really good song.
yeah.
So all right, so let's go to number 7 and another classic, "Die a Day Before You Were Born." Jim, lead us off with this one.
Oh, this is fast thrash track, fast drum track, wicked track. Like, how many times can I just write so many positive things? I love that galloping, crunchy kind of guitars that just keep going. And it just,
Yeah.
I mean, this is what, this kind of might have been a return to the first couple of albums, too. Like, you got more of a progressive sound, but I think this kind of returns back to more of a genesis of thrash, and I like that, and I think that's probably how this album went. Maybe they started to get a little bit more thrashier. I mean, then the next song is a little bit different too, but in a good
Mhm.
way. But I mean,
Mhm.
I just find they might have gone back a little bit more to the roots of destruction in this song. That's how the way I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. How about you, Bill?
Yeah, no, same thing. I think, very thrashy. Yet again, another super catchy chorus with those good backing vocals. But yeah, like I think Jim kind of hit it there, right? Going back to the old days, and particularly in the solos, right? Like this track
Yeah,
pretty much at the 3 minute mark. It just shreds for the next minute. But whereas much of the rest of the album, the solos were a bit more melodic bass. Right here, they're just shredders. I almost would have maybe liked to have heard a bit more of that
yeah,
in the album. So yeah, I didn't make the connection of going back to the first 2 albums until kind of Jim said it, but that's kind of what it is. And I usually like Andre singing lower, but on this track, it's the only time he does it on the whole album, but he has a killer scream at the end of the song, right? Where he just shouts die and it goes
Yeah.
for like 15 seconds or something. We probably could have used more of that style, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Like it's obviously he's trying to imitate Schmear at some point. That was my first thought when I heard the song. Um, Also, I think though there's a little bit of anger on the song, and it's the lyrics like they're talking about societal norms, rebelling against conformity. So again, it's got like a pissed off vibe to it. So you can kind of equate that to like classic destruction thrash. At least that's what I interpret as. So I think we all agree we're on the same page that it's very much like harking back to the classic era of the band. So it is a really, really good song.
Yeah.
Now, the next song is probably one of the songs that I love. This opening is fantastic. No need to justify it. And when you get that opening with the galloping chug, the eerie, I guess they're horns and chimes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. It's so offbeat, but it's just kicks into another ripper of a song. So, Billy, let's hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit on it, right? Like, but I mean, again, it just has a really cool intro, right? Before it just picks up, as you said. But it's almost like ballad, like the kind of the way it starts. But then it takes off, and I think it contrasts well with a Day Before You're Born, because there we're talking about they're going back to the old school sound. Here, this one I find musically it's a bit more back to the technical side, right? I think it's one of the strongest tracks musically. Lots of unexpected twist again. So I like the way they mix it up, like the old school thrash and this. Again, I feel like a broken record, but like another killer chorus here again. And yeah, I never got the end of the song, right? To end it with kind of that weird laugh at the end.
Oh yeah,
I mean, maybe there's something to it, but I don't know. I could have did without that part, but that's an incredibly minute complaint. It's a great song.
What about you, Jim?
Oh God, this thing when it starts, I have ballad with a question mark. Like you wonder. It's a progressive, technical thrash, kind of a masterpiece on this album. I mean, I love it. You're right. Billy's right. It jumps from song 7, where it's kind of a return back to basics in a way. And then this is just technically really, really kind of pushes the envelope even farther. And that double bass, it's got, again, a nice darker sound to it. And that distorted horns, I mean, that's really cool. It just, it could be on a battlefield. Who knows? It's so cool. You get all these images when you're, and that's one of the makings of a good song in my mind, is when you start kind of bringing up these images. And you know what? After this, we're done recording this, I'm going to listen to this song because it's that good. I mean, I've got goosebumps thinking about it right now. But yeah, and I mean, the drums again, and that's the big thing with this album, that I find the drums are so strong on it, but his vocals really, really match this. And I often wonder if Schmear was on it, like how would have it sounded? I think this is just, they nailed this one totally.
Well, I think if Schmear was on it, he might have overdone it with the screams and
Yeah.
the shouting. Where here it's a bit more tempered, but it works for the style of the song. So I don't know if that would be a good thing for Schmear to be on it. Again, though, lyrically, I was looking at the lyrics, and it's obviously to me this album they're really pissed off at times, because now they're talking about the reflections of like being resilient, talking about human emotions, how complex they are. So it's like when they get into this kind of certain mode about things that I guess they relate to personally, it comes out in the lyrics, and especially in the song. But yeah, this is a fabulous song. I love this song.
Wicked.
And Ken, who I know you're big into the lyrics, and I've said I rarely read them. Who wrote the lyrics on this thing?
Mike did.
Does Mike write all the lyrics for all the albums?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Mike is pretty much like the main songwriter. Well, like I guess Schmear can contribute a lot too, but Mike is like the primary singer, songwriter, and music for both lyrics and music. So
Okay.
And it makes sense, right? Because that's the reason why Smear left the band, because he didn't like the fact that they wanted to go into that kind of
Yeah.
he they go into that kind of progressive direction. So he took umbrage with Mike's style of writing, which I don't know. I mean, you can't play Eternal Devastation every album. It's gonna get boring. You
Yeah.
gotta
Exactly.
you gotta progress your style and sound, so it would make sense.
Yeah, no. I guess given that though, I mean, maybe I'm jumping here, but it's pretty surprising. Diabolical was so good then, because the longtime songwriter of everything was gone. I thought maybe Smear had a much bigger part in the songwriting through history, but maybe not.
I think he did. I mean, I'm sure like he contributed it, but from what I
Yeah,
understand, what I've read and know,
yeah,
Mike was the primary songwriter in
yeah,
the band.
yeah.
That
That
just
makes
makes
sense.
it just makes sense given
Yeah,
how progressive they were, right?
yeah, no, for
But
sure.
yeah. So we're gonna go now to track number 9, and this is a killer song, "When Your Mind Was Free." And Billy, let's hear your thoughts on this ending song.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like I find this one a little bit more of a melodic thrash song.
Mm-hmm.
It's catchy, lots of hooks. I find this one a little bit groovy actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has some of the some of my favorite like guitar leads on the album here as well. So yeah, I think it ends strong, right? Like this is just a great run of 4 tracks that anyone who's not giving this album a chance is missing. So yeah, great song.
Cool. And
Mhm.
what do you think, Jim?
Yeah, the album ends on a high. These last four from six on, or I mean, and including four. And I like the first few songs too, but I mean, this just ends it on a high. Like the guitar leads, like Billy was saying, it's got again. It kind of returns to me when I start thinking about it. If I was to Americanize this album, this song has more of a bit of a testament groove to it.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a great song. Ending on a high. I hate it when bands kind of fizzle out on an album. I like it when it progressively gets like each song is better than the next. I mean, I know you have that middle usually in an album where there's a little bit of filler. On this
Yeah.
one, the only filler is My Sharona. The rest of it's a really good album from start to finish. And number 9 just finishes it off in style. And I'm happy with it finishing like that because I think they could have easily skipped 5 and put something else on there. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
another 4 or 5 minute, or bring it up around 45 minutes would have been cool in
Mm-hmm.
my mind. And I think but who knows? I guess hindsight's 2020. But no, I would have liked that better than having the cover on there.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree
Yeah.
there. The one thing I'm going to note here, though, with Andre's vocals, is I don't know if you guys are really familiar with a lot of the Entropy, the Toronto thrash band.
Yeah.
At times, Andre's vocals tend to almost resemble Gary Schreinerich, who is the vocalist for Entropy. I sort of get a vibe,
Oh,
very, very similar style with the kind of the shrill vocals, and then you push up to this higher register with the screams. I just
good
noticed
point.
it, but mind you, Jerry is a much more emphatic vocalist. His screams are pure, like ear piercing. But it was just the one thing I noticed about the song. I just thought the vocals kind of stood out for me on this one. But otherwise, I agree with you guys. It's a really good way to close off the album. All right, so that's pretty much Cracked Brain. We've discussed it, dissected, and I think we all agree that we do dig it much. If you guys gave it a rating, what would you give it, Jim?
I go 9 out of 10. I mean,
Yeah.
it's high up in my rankings.
Okay.
It is an essential thrash album. I think there's more essential destruction albums than this, but I
Mm-hmm.
think this is very important to the history of destruction.
Okay.
I'm one that I generally like to celebrate at least something. Maybe there's one album here I wouldn't celebrate anything on, but I like to celebrate all. I kind of call them, like Deep Purple with the Mark One, Mark Two, Mark Three, the
Oh yeah,
MK,
yeah.
where they do the different group, the members and stuff. This, definitely was a MK2. So, and then there was an MK3, and then they went back. So, it is definitely an essential thrash album. I would say probably if I was to rank this out of my top 25 thrash albums, it definitely would be in there with some more, with it one or two more for sure. So, yeah, 9 out of 10.
Okay. How about you, Billy?
Yeah, I'm kind of in there. Like 8.5 was sort of my thinking, but 9 certainly possible. Again, not to give away my ranking, but there's things above it that are 10. So like it just doesn't make sense for it to be a 10. So yeah, I'd probably go 8, somewhere between 8 and 9.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going I'm on Jim's side of the fence. I'm going a 9. I think it might be 10, but that My Sharona kind of really knocks it down a peg for me anyways. Otherwise it's a solid album for sure. Like it's a solid album. So okay, now we come to the very daunting task of our podcast tonight, and that's the album rankings. And I know they have 17 studio albums, and there were a lot of EPs, so we could have even expanded if we added the EPs, but I know we decided to stick with the studio albums. So like Kreator, they have a very, very extensive discovery of music from starting out till now. So let's start the rankings out. Jim, why don't you start us off with your rankings?
I only thought there was 15.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same. I only have 15 albums.
Okay, so I included the Thrash Anthems 1 and 2. That's why. So
I
okay,
didn't
we
include,
can leave those off. That's all right. That's fine. So we can do the 15.
Sorry,
but yeah,
guys.
Because that's fine.
I was the same, Jim. I was gonna ask where do the other two came from?
Yeah, I included the Thrash Anthems 1 and 2, but technically, I guess they aren't really studio. I mean, they're just re-recordings of classic Destruction songs. Okay, so we'll just stick at 15. So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. Well, Cannonball, the least successful. Cannonball is the least successful album for me. I got nothing to say about it. I had it, or I have it because I have it. I'm a completist to some degree, but I never listened to it, and I just didn't understand it. I don't, again, when I talked about Kreator, they had a couple of stinkers there too. But I like it when bands tweak. Like Cracked Brain was a tweak, had a new singer, so kind of a big tweak, but they only tweaked it a little bit in my mind, making it a little bit more progressive than the album before. But they stayed generally like maybe 7 out of 10 to their the recipe of what they were doing. This is just in a different direction altogether. 14, Day of Recovery, to 2011. This could be moved up. I like 14 to 11. They're all really good albums. I just I gotta rank them. So 13, Born to Perish, 2019. My 12 is Diabolical. I love that album. I even love the cover on it, and I'm not a covers guy, but I just think it's so cool, and I like that album. That album, if I remember right, I ranked it in my top 10 of 2022, I believe. Number 11, Metal Discharge, 2003. The Ravenous Beast on that's a wicked track. I like that album. Number 10, Inventor of Evil, 2005. Soul Collection's a good song on that. Number 9 would be Under Attack, 2016. There's a song on it, I think it's called Generation Nevermore. That's a pretty strong song. Number 8, All Hell's Breaking Loose. So this would be the return of Schmier. That's a pretty good album, and I was, I like Cracked Brain a lot, but I was glad he got back, and I'm glad they kind of went in the way they did. Number 7, Spirited Genocide. Cyanide on that's a wicked song. Number 6 would be 2008, so one that was a bit higher up. Devolution, No One Shall Survive is a wicked song.
Yeah.
Number 5, The Antichrist.
Yep.
Number 4, Cracked Brain. So, My Sharona. I'm only kidding. Cracked Brain there. It's awesome. And then, 1 through 3 could be really anything, but my number 1's just, I'll explain it. Number 3, Eternal Devastation, Confused Mind. There's a ton of classics on that. That could have been my number 1. Number 2, Infernal Overkill. I think Tormentor is one of my favorite songs. Would probably be in my top 5 songs of theirs. But that again could be number one as well. And I picked Release from Agony just because that was my first introduction to them. So great album. Probably a little bit technically better than the first two, but I like the grittiness of the first two, and I love the thrashiness of the first two. So all three of those could be intermoved around into my top three.
Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And how about you, Billy?
Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty hard. Like I think
Yeah.
the bottom three was easy. The top four was fairly easy, top 4 or 5. But I had to do some homework to get the middle right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, 15. We already know what that is. Human Cannonball. And unlike Jim, I refuse to own it. Like it's not even gonna
Hey, same here, dude.
that couple centimeters of like shelf space. And then also, not a great album for me. 2003's Metal Discharge. I mean, it's a big step up from Cannonball, but that's not hard to do, really. I still think it's fairly weak. Hands down, this is the worst drum sound in the history of thrash. Like, if you guys listen, I mean, I don't know when the last time you've heard this, but listen to it. Like, they're playing on tin cans. Like, it's just brutal. The songs are not memorable for me. So yeah, I'm gonna say that's all I'm gonna say there. Equally, I think Spiritual Genocide is a pretty uninspired album. I rank it a little bit higher than the previous two because I think the production is kind of cool on this album. I do like where they landed. One of the best features, the drumming here is hands down the best part of the album. But it does have a cool song, Legacy of the Past, that has Tom from Sodom and Gerard from Tankard contributing vocals. So that's kind of cool. For me, number 12 from 2008, De-Evolution. Again, best part here is you got Gary Holt, Jeff Waters, and Vinnie Moore who contribute a few solos. This for me is a big step up from number 15, 14, and 13. Some good material here, but like we're going to hear in the next couple albums, there's consistency issues here. Like I find the next couple are going to be a couple like half, 25 to 50% are awesome. And then things sort of fall apart with the other half. For number 11 for me, 2019, Born to Perish. Same thing, consistency issues. I do think the first 3 songs are killer on this thing. The title track, Inspired by Death and Betrayal, but then it sort of falls off in other places. So when there's a great song, when it's great, but when it's not, it's not. This again is another time they brought back the second guitarist on this album. So I do think that was probably noticeable. There's a fuller guitar sound. Number 10 for me from 2016, Under Attack. Under Attack for me, far more consistent than the previous album before this, Spiritual Genocide. I do like that Destruction sound pretty angry on this album. And about 50 to 60% of the album is killer. But then the rest, I just don't think it holds up. And I do find there's some new metal influences, which I could do without a few times.
Good point.
So number 9 for me, Days of Reckoning. I like this album from 2011. I think it's one where they go back to old school Destruction style. This just might be one of the most aggressive albums on the album. I think Mike's riffing here again just stands out. The thrashy riffs of kind of the older days. There's some cool twists on here, and the production is killer. Number 8, I go Diabolical. Again, the most recent album. I think we already talked about it, but that's pretty impressive album given they lost their main songwriter. I think it's a better album than Born to Perish.
Yeah.
Lots of good, good tracks. Hope Dies Last, the title track, State of Apathy are all great. But to me, there's also, a number of misses on the album. So it kind of lands in the middle. Number 7 for me, Inventor of Evil from 2005. Again, another aggressive and angry destruction album. Production, because I find that some of the albums are just terrible production in the catalog and some
Yeah.
really good. And so I kind of call that out. A cool track on here is the Alliance of Hellhounds that have, the 10 or 11 guest vocalists. You get Bill Byford from Saxon, Doro Peavy from Rage, Messiah from Candlemass, Mark from Death Angel, Paul Diano from Old Maiden. So I think that's really kind of cool. That helps elevate it, but it's a good overall album. Number 6 for me, we talked a bit about this already. All Hell Breaks Loose. What a great comeback album from Cannonball, and of course Smear returns. So yeah, just a great destruction album. Number 5, Crack Brain. We already
Okay.
talked about that. For me, number 4 is probably because it's 4 because the top 3 I've spent more time with. But I mean, this is really the true comeback album after Cannonball. Maybe not in the order, but this is a modern day thrash masterpiece. For me, it largely stands ground with the first 3. It's consistently strong. I don't have a weak song on this album. Like things like Thrash Till Death and Nailed to the Cross are just
Great songs.
some of the best destruction songs. And that one time I told you I saw them live, that was literally my last mosh experience of my life back in 15, and it was to Nailed to the Cross.
Nice.
So yeah, that has a little extra memory for me. Number 3, Infernal Overkill, the first album from '85. Personally, I think it's the best German debut album of all the big 4 in Germany. The production is pretty rough, right? As is the next one, but this is the roughest, so it gets number 3 for me. I mean, the riffs and the leads are fantastic. Again, for me, Smear's a bit like, not my favorite, but things like Invisible Force, The Ritual, and Bestial Invasion are just fantastic. Number 2, Eternal Devastation, just, classic, classic thrash album. I liked it better than, I like it better than Infernal Overkill. A little bit more mature. The band's getting better. Songwriting, I think, is a little bit better. Production's still rough. But Smear really gets a bit manic here on this one. Even more so than the first album. But Curse the Band, Curse the Gods, Eternal Band, and Live Without Sense. Just fantastic. And no surprise here, I guess, Release from Agony. We already sort of talked about this, but to me, this is the perfect mix of the old, the technical, but still retaining the true sound. And we talked about this. The extra guitar player makes a big difference here.
Yeah.
I started writing 1 or 2 tracks. I ended up with like 6 or 7. So forget it. Like they're just all, it's all a great album. So everything's, so yeah,
Cool.
that's my ranking.
Cool. Okay. So mine's interesting. I wanted to just preface this before we start. Some of the later material from like 2014, like anywhere from 2012 and up, is all, to me, it just kind of all blurs together at times. There are some interesting things about it, but I find some of the last few albums beyond Diabolical have been they just mesh together to me. No, that's not because I don't hate the band. I just find that some of the later stuff is just, it's just okay, but I'm kind of feeling like, I've been down this road before. I've heard it. It's nothing to blow my mind away. But so, of course, I'll start with, Cannonball. We all agree it's a crappy record, period. At number 14, I'm going to be putting Born to Perish, which I thought was okay, but it lost a little bit of steam for me as a record on a whole. Number 13, Under Attack, which I didn't mind, but again, I'm finding some of the later stuff just all blurring together and nothing stands out. Metal Discharge is awful. I don't like that album at all. I think that we've basically realized that it has bad production. It's really, really bad production. I'm not a fan of it. Then I'm going to put number 11. I'm putting Spiritual Genocide, which I didn't mind, but again, it's not a lot of songs on it that I want to go back to revisit very often. And then at number 10, I'm putting Diabolical, which I do like it. I have to give it a more of a spin. I listened to it quite a bit when it came out. Then I hadn't listened to it in a while, but I gave it a little bit of a spin this weekend, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of a return to form album again. Even without Mike playing in the band, it's pretty solid. And at number 9, I'm going to be putting Inventor of Evil, which I really, really dig that song. I love the song. I love the whole album. There's some great catchy songs there for me. Number 8, I'm putting Day of Reckoning, which I also really, really liked a lot. There's a lot of songs that I kind of feel really strong. Number 7, I'm putting De-Evolution, which I kind of like that song. I kind of like that song, and I like the album quite a bit. Number 6, of course, it's All Hell Breaks Loose. Even though it's considered their comeback album, it's not the one that I consider their comeback album, but I do like this album quite a bit. Number 5, I'm putting Infernal Overkill, which for the debut, it's pretty good, but there's things about that I wouldn't want to come back to here again. Number 4, The Antichrist is the album I consider their comeback record. Number 4, it's just a total killer of an album. Every song is just rips. Love it. I love that to death. Number 3, I'm putting Crack Brain, which again, I totally love that album. Number 2 for me is Released from Agony. And number 1 for me, of course, is Eternal Devastation, because it's the first album that I heard from the band, and it just has a special place in my heart for me. So I think
awesome.
We all have similar placings and rankings, but I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I just find the later stuff, it kind of dips at times. I like parts of it, but I'm like, okay, you guys gone down that road. It's a rehash, parts of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I guess I've been listening to metal for 35 years or 35, 40 years, and it starts to sometimes blur into each other after a while, You hear so much of it.
Particularly with this catalog, right? Like that last stack, they totally blur, right? And like I said, there's a total consistency problem, right? Like some of the tracks are good, and when they're good, but they all have plenty of bad tracks as well. So,
absolutely,
You make a good point, Billy, too, because some of the production on even the latter albums isn't that great either. It's kind of it goes from one extreme to kind of another, and then the track like going for a 60% album or a 30% album. That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so do you guys have any final thoughts about Destruction before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, you
hope
go ahead.
Hope they come to Canada. And I hope they come to Halifax. They won't come to Halifax, but it would be great.
Jim, you got a better chance of winning the lottery.
Yeah, I would think.
I mean, they come to North America every now and then, more for I think maybe the last time they were at Maryland Death Fest, which was odd, but they always bring a few thrash bands. But yeah, I don't know that we'll see them too often here. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they came back to Canada. I don't even remember the last time they were in Canada, to be honest. Does anyone know?
I mean, were they? I'm not even sure they were.
I don't even know.
I've only saw them in Germany.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they've toured Canada at one point. They must have.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up. Okay. Interesting. And okay, so before we do finally close this out, I know next week we're going to be talking about Sodom. Billy, did you have any thoughts as to what album you want us to go over next week?
Oh, the pressure's on.
Yes, sir. I had to get you on this one.
So for me, it's Agent Orange or it's Persecution Mania.
It's your call, dude. I'll go with either one. It's up to you.
All right, we'll do Agent Orange.
Great.
Okay, perfect.
It's my
Okay,
favorite Sodom album. So if you,
yeah, it's probably one of mine too. I like that album quite a bit. All right, so you heard it here, folks. Next week we will be discussing Sodom and Agent Orange, another classic German thrash band. We got a theme going here, at least for the first few episodes of the podcast. All right, guys. So
it wasn't intentional. It just kind of fell that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we take it as we go. I mean, I think that's just the way to look at it, right? Just whatever.
Can we give a hint of what the one after is, and that we're going to leave Germany?
Yeah, we are. We're going to the States. We're heading back to the United States for this one. That's going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to it. Again, we have to decide what album we're going to take. They only have, well, what, 4 now, right? Yeah, it's 4. Yeah. So hint, 4 albums. I know which one I want to do, but I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to talk about it later on.
Are the initials VOD?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm the same.
Yeah, that's where I want to go with it. So
yeah.
Because I think that's a classic and it doesn't get talked about at all. So I think we should do that.
All right.
Absolutely.
Let's just say it. Heathen, victim of
deception. You got it. That's 2 weeks away. So we gave everyone a little bit of a surprise ahead of time, but that's cool. All right, guys. So this is going to wrap up episode 3. We will have this released on Friday. So you can check us out at Horror Metal Sounds or on our YouTube channel. And we hope to hear from everybody and check us out. So with that being said, let's have a good night, guys.